All right, guys, it's great to be with you this morning, and of course, a very, very uh, happy Mother's Day to everyone. Really, Les, you're recording, right? It's really great to be here this morning to be able to celebrate with you. And I'm not used to, as you can tell, singing for I've had to do it a long time, and so got a little bit of the what you call it to hear that. Some of the newer songs are always up a little higher than my range allows. So, nonetheless, it's great to be here, as I said, and I said for you moms, I hope you're having a great morning. It might even be a nice day to be able to even get outside a little bit, enjoy the outside today a bit. That would be fantastic. I'm looking forward to a walk this afternoon with my wife. That would be great. We've been enjoying our times outside together as we walk around. There's so many great places in our area to walk around and to just to be with one another. One of the hidden benefits of this time is that time from that we can take like things like that. Not just be down on our times and everything. But okay, so what can we take from our times? What can we take from this time? And that is being close with those that you're close with, getting to know them more, hanging out with them, taking walks, doing different things. Not that we didn't do that before. You should always do it always. But really, you have this concentrated time to do that. And I see that as a bit of a hidden benefit, if you will, in that some way. And this morning what we're going to do is we're going to continue with a series that we're calling The Walk. It is a series that really explores the implications of the death and resurrection of Jesus. Of course, something we celebrated on Easter weekend some weeks ago, but really kind of explores that. Okay, you'll say, so Jesus came. That's a historical fact. There's this guy that the Romans even have. They say they killed this guy named Jesus. You see, and why did he die? What does that mean for us? What does his resurrection, him no longer being in the grave, but being resurrected, what does that mean for us, particularly those who put their faith in Jesus? That's why we're calling it The Walk, because we're actually trying to walk this as a reality of the walk. And I find this, as I was prefacing some of this comment, in that right now we're having to walk out faith, aren't we, right now? During this time of this COVID thing, we're trying to walk out our faith. Some of you are discovering new aspects of your faith. Some of you are discovering faith for the first time. Some are, sadly, some have been shaken in their faith, you see. Some yes, some no. Point of it is we're learning what it's about and how do we walk it out. And what we're doing is we're actually going through some of the references of this walk by a guy named Paul, who wrote in the Bible most of the books in the New Testament, and a third of them anyway, of the books in the New Testament. And he talks about this. And who is Paul? Paul's this guy who used to persecute Christians. He's the one who persecuted people of faith. He would round them up, you see, put them in jail, killed some, you see, had some killed. Point of it is that but what happens to Paul? He meets Jesus. He has a conversion experience. Now, he was a person who believed in God, you see. But all of a sudden, it's not just a matter of believing in God, it's what God is doing. Particularly what is God doing in Jesus. And so Paul then has this tremendous conversion experience. And what does he do? He himself goes on a walk. In the Bible, he has three we call missionary journeys. He goes on a walk. He walks a good portion of the Roman Empire, talking about this Jesus. And he's talking about, as he's walking, he's talking about this walk that we're describing and we're talking about it, and actually going into his writings to see what he's referring to. He refers to it so often. You can see the way he talks about the walk as how to live. How do we live this out? How do we live out this faith in the realization that Jesus has come, he's died, and he's risen, and now we put our faith in him? How do we walk this out now? Because Jesus gave him a new way to walk out this faith, you see. And today what we're going to do is we're going to discover as people of faith, and what we're going to discover is that we walk by faith, not by sight. We walk by faith, not by sight, is what we do. And to do that, basically, that's where that thing comes up, actually, right there. It's a little bit of a screen. Walk by faith, not by sight. But that's okay. Anyway, what we're doing is, so how then is this walk a journey exercise? Before I get there, though, and when I was thinking about this walk, and I was thinking about particularly today in terms of talking about walking by faith and not by sight, I believe it or not, I wasn't thinking about walking at all. For some reason, I was thinking about being on my motorcycle. And not a lot of walking going on, though I do do a lot of walking. And so I guess I get off my bike and I sometimes go to places where I do walk, but that's not the point. The point I'm trying to get at is when I take my motorcycle, oftentimes, one of the best things to do when I get on my bike, particularly on a day off, is literally I don't know where I'm going. I say, I think I'll head north, or I'll head east, or I'll head west, or I'll head this way or that way. And I don't know where I'm going. And it's like, we'll take a left turn here, take a right turn there. It's a journey. Every time I get on my bike, it's like a vacation. I have to be honest, that's the truth. Even if it's a short ride from my house to here, to the office. It's like a little mini vacation. But however, though, every time I get on to actually go someplace, do something, sometimes I don't know where I'm going. It's a journey, kind of like a faith journey. Where is God going to take me? Where is he bringing me to? And guess what? Some of the roads, they're curvy and up and down hills, and I don't know what's around the next turn, so you're trying to be careful and cautious, but at the same time you get through the other side, you see, and all of the rest. It's a journey. And sometimes I relate this walk that we are on in faith, kind of like that. We do know our ultimate destination. We know where we're going. And oftentimes I'll do that on my bike. I'll say I want to go to such and such city in maybe some state or something. But how I get there, who cares? Whatever. What road? The twistier the road, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And so, but nonetheless, but I know where I'm going. I know my destination. We know our destination, but it's a journey. So how is this walk a journey then for us in an exercise of faith, not sight? And the first thing, there's 2 points I want to make. And the first one is this. It is a living out of a future reality now. It's living out a future reality to us, a destination, if you will, that we're not there yet, but that destination. It's living out a future reality now in a hope that sustains us throughout all our lives on the journey. It's knowing the destination. It's knowing where we're going. And then that hope sustains us. This faith walk, you see? But because it's Mother's Day, I asked a couple of my guys in my home group if they wouldn't mind saying a couple of words about their own moms. And maybe while they're talking about their moms, we can think of your mom. You can think of, the moms that you see what I mean? In a sense of our gratitude for our moms. But I have 2 right now that I'm going to have you look at. And so I'm going to let those guys go ahead and put those on.
Happy Mother's Day to all mothers across the world, but especially to ours, Maureen Bridget Fitzpatrick Mullaney. You are a light to everyone that you come in contact with. I remember since we were little, every single day you would recite, "This is the day the Lord has made, let us rejoice and be glad in it." And you would just teach us that every day is precious and it's a gift from God that we get to spend time together. Around this time last year, you agreed to host not 1, not 2, but 6 girls from Uganda to come and live with us for the month. And although you're the busiest person I know, you really just showed us that there's always time to love and care for other people.
And you're always putting other people's happiness before yourself. Like every day when I have swim practice or field hockey practice, you're always dropping everything that you're doing and coming to pick me up, give me a ride, get me home safely to make sure that I'm having fun, I'm spending time with my friends, and that I'm getting to practice on time. And you're just a blessing because you're always making sure that we're happy.
And I don't know if y'all know this, but there are 3 of us. One who won't even get in the video, and we're all teenagers. So that in and of itself is just a tribulation for our mother. And gotta give her a hand for that because she just deals with us in such a
gentle way. Even when we look all put together at church, we can be very crazy at home. So, round of applause for Maureen Mullaney.
The month of April was super stressful, especially for my mom. I asked her how did her faith play into this time with all the added stress, balancing, so much more now, especially that my dad had gotten sick. She said when it all started, she was angry. At my dad, not God. She said she was frustrated and scared. She said her prayers changed to be even more thankful that even though life was scary right now and more stressful, she was able to say I love you to God even more now than before. She said she gave God her anger, she gave him her fear and asked him to take the lead. She said she told God, you're in control, not me. I'll do whatever you ask of me. I just need you to guide me because I don't know how to do this. It was then that she felt God shift her role, that he is the one in control, and we often forget that. God bless all the mothers. You all carry so much weight on your shoulders. It's incredible. Happy Mother's Day to all the mothers everywhere.
Okay, just how absolutely wonderful those testimonies are. They're just absolutely fantastic, and really appreciate those guys doing that, taking the time to put that together. And, you know, in 2 Corinthians, I want to read for you out of 2 Corinthians. This is the ESV. But nonetheless, yeah, in the 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 1 to 4. If you can get my other Bible, I'd appreciate it. And this is what it says. It says, so we know that if the tent that is our earthly home is destroyed, we have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. For in this tent we groan, longing to put on our heavenly dwelling. If indeed by putting it on we may not be found naked. For while we are still in this tent, we groan, being burdened, not that we would be unclothed, but that we would be further clothed, so that what is mortal may be swallowed up by life. For who has prepared us for this very thing is God, who has given us his Spirit as a guarantee. This is absolutely outstanding, what we're reading here this morning and what it means for us, particularly as we talk about walking it out and walking these things out in faith. Because, you know, when we talk about walking things out in faith, we're talking about walking things out not by sight, particularly. This passage may look like it's talking about, just when you're just looking at it, it just looks like we're talking about going to heaven. But actually, that's not really what he's talking about in terms of paradise, you know, in that sense, after we die. And really, you know, what he's hinting, he might hint at a little bit here, but what really Paul is saying here is that he's focused just as most Jewish theologians of his day basically were focusing on those type of things. He's talking about a time of God's rule and reign on the earth in a restored creation where, again, there is an intimacy. There is an intimacy with his people, just as he had in the garden. He's talking about putting on clothes. He doesn't mean clothes, putting on clothes. He's talking about resurrection. He's talking about putting on something different. You see, a new body is what he's referring to, you see. And so in this, and what we see here is, for what reason? He's looking forward to a time when God again is walking with his people. It's the thing he's wanted to do for forever. Matter of fact, in Genesis, the first book in the Bible, one of my favorite descriptions of all this is found in Genesis chapter 3, verses 8 and 9. It says, then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord as he was walking in the garden in the cool of the day. as they hid themselves from the Lord God among the trees. But the Lord God called to the man, "Where are you?" They weren't playing hide and seek, you see. It's not a game, even though I believe there was a lot of fun going on in the garden, a lot of frolicking and these type of things. They weren't playing hide and seek here. This is a time when all of a sudden man became ashamed because they did something. God told them, don't do this. One thing, just don't do it, okay? Just don't do it. And so now they're ashamed. Now they're hiding, you see, from God. And here God, but what is the description of God in the midst of his creation? He's taking a walk. He's walking, and I love the way it says, in the cool of the day. So in other words, it means he's enjoying it. That's the reason of saying why you point out that it's the cool of the day. He's enjoying his time in relationship with his creation, and particularly we, his creation, as humans. But, of course, they hid themselves from God. And what does God do? He calls out to them. He was seeking them. He was searching for them. He's saying, where are you? And I do believe, that I think God is still calling each one of us by name, especially each one of us who really are not walking with him right now, who are hiding from him. You see? And some of you have been hiding from God for a long time. But God is so passionate for us, so in love with us and his creation. You see, he wants to walk with us. And that's really, when you think about it, that's the entire narrative of the Bible, from Genesis right through to Revelation. God wanting to be with his creation, his people. That's the point. From book 1 all the way to the end. And you see throughout the scripture, that's what he does. He has Moses build a tabernacle. Then they build a temple. Why? Because that's where heaven and earth met. God came, walking, being with his people, you see. And it says that very specifically, that I would be their God and they would be my people. He would be with them. And of course, then Jesus. And then what happens? Jesus comes, he dies, and he rises, and he says, when I die, it's good that I die. Because why? Because then the Spirit will come. And God, Jesus is God incarnate, and now God's Spirit comes and lives in us. And what is he doing? Walking with us, being with us. You see, this is the narrative, to the point when he comes again, Jesus returns, and now he comes permanently to us. And a restored heaven and earth, walking with us, you see. This is the story of the Bible. That's why he gives us his Spirit. It's God's desire for us. So here in 2 Corinthians 5, Paul speaks of the day when we are clothed, is what he says here in 2 Corinthians 5, in the first 5 verses. When we are clothed once again in a body, yes, a physical body, unlike the present body, you see. It's different. One that is immortal, and it's forever. And one that is in right relationship with God and his design. Matter of fact, in 2 Corinthians 5:5, it says this, now it is God who has made us for this very purpose. It is God who has made us for this very purpose and has given us the Spirit as a deposit, guaranteeing what is to come. I love the way the Message version has this verse as well. Matter of fact, they're coming right down here by my feet, aren't they? These scriptures are coming right down here. I should point to them. There they are. In the Message version, says this, the Spirit of God whets our appetite by giving us a taste of what's ahead. He puts a little heaven in our hearts so that we'll never settle for less. Oh my goodness, is that not a great way of saying that? He whets our appetites for what is to come because he gives us himself, his spirit in us, you see. We are enlivened all of a sudden to what is really going on about us and around us. We see with different eyes. We hear with different ears. We understand differently in a renewed mind, a mind that's being renewed to God's kingdom and God's ways, God's creation, God's design, you see. I hope you are not someone who's settling for less. I hope you are not someone who is settling for less. Thinking that what you see now is all there is. That's it. What you see, that's all we get. The best of times now is the best it'll ever be. Not so. Or even more sadly, looking backwards, thinking that somehow back there sometime was better. I hope that's not true for you. That is not the hope that we have. That's not living out a future reality and a hope that will sustain you, to keep you going. Thinking that what you see is all there is, even the evils of the world and in the world, the dysfunction of the world, which is manifesting the consequences, really, is what it's doing, of a creation that is separated from God. That's all this stuff is. There's a manifestation of a creation in separation from its creator. His intent and the hope that he brings in knowing him. Our eyes are on Jesus and what he has done and is doing. So long as our eyes are on him, we get it. So our walk is more kind of like more of an adventure, basically, in the exercising of faith through all of this stuff, through all the craziness of the world and all the things that we have to traverse on our way there. We may not know or can explain all that is coming. We don't. Just like in my motorcycle ride, I don't necessarily know what's coming around the turn, necessarily. I may not know every little turn. I may not be able to explain every little thing. But we can choose how we see it with eyes of faith and hope of a future. Like these moms, basically, like the Mulaney's girls talking about Maureen, and like Justin, talk about his mother Wanda. You see? Living out a faith and then depositing it back into their children. God choosing those moms for those children. And now depositing in their life something of a future reality. They themselves living it out, you see, before their children, before them, living it out. And in that, the girls and Justin garnering a hope. You see? Where does that hope come from? They're talking about their moms bringing them the good news of Jesus and the hope that he brings. And so therefore, in terms of our second point, therefore, if that is true, that we're living now in this future reality, this hope, then, and God's restoring all of this so that we can live with him and walk with him in it, then what we do now matters. What we do as people of faith, people, period, what we do now matters. Matter of fact, like, we have a couple of more videos that of guys from my group who would like to talk about their moms. And so you're going to be watching that right now.
Happy Mother's Day to my mom and all the other moms out there. We're so grateful for you and thankful for what you do today and every day of the year. We are praying for you and thankful for you and just so blessed to have you in our lives. And I mean, I know my mom has really raised me in the faith and taught me that I could have a relationship with God, and I'm super grateful for that. She's taught me family values, that family is the most important thing out there, and that's something that's really important to me now because of her, so I'm thankful for that. And today we're just so grateful for mothers who have a job, no matter if they're staying in the house or out there working to help contribute. Both things are a job, and both are contributing to the house and just the family, and we're super thankful for that. And we're also thankful today for the people who just step in as motherly figures for other people, because unfortunately some people haven't had a great mother in their life. So thankfully God brings other people into our lives who can step into that role. So today, just happy Mother's Day to everybody who has been a mom or stepped into that role, and we're praying for you and hope that you have a wonderful day and a wonderful summer and a great year.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Mother's Day. I wanted to take a minute and just talk about my amazing mother. First of all the mothers in our church are amazing. I am biased and think my mother is the best. So yeah, I just wanted to talk really quickly about that. First of all, when Louie texted me and said, would you like to talk a little bit about her? I immediately thought there are so many stories and so many situations that my mother has been in that show how amazingly faithful she is, and how she just leans on God in those times. But I then thought back to a few years ago. She had been diagnosed with Lyme's disease, and that's kind of an awful thing to have to go through, and it took a while for them to diagnose it. And she just had to go through so much tiredness and headaches and sore muscles, and throughout the whole time, even before she was diagnosed with it, she was just leaning on God, saying, I know he's going to figure out what is going to happen, and she was faithful that she would be fine throughout it all. She had something called Bell's palsy, where half of her face became paralyzed, and it just made her so extremely tired, and she felt like she couldn't do anything, but she knew that through God that she would be able to keep going, and that throughout all of it, even though she had us 4 kids and we were going on trips and we had gone to Columbus, Ohio that year, she was strong and she leaned on God, and she said, you're going to get me through it, and she was able to get through it. And that situation always shows me that no matter what situation you're in, that if you lean on God, that he's going to get you through it. And I mean, everything that she does always shows me that, but that's just one situation that I always brings to mind, just thinking how she pushed through, but it wasn't her pushing through, it was her leaning on God and him getting her through it. So yeah, I love you, Mother.
Yeah, that is something. It's nice to see both Andrea and Alyssa on the screen there. Alyssa's particularly, she's always behind the camera doing something back there. Now she's right up front there. It's always good to see her on that. In 2 Corinthians, again, and chapter 5, verses 6, starting with verse 6, going down to 10, it says this. It says, therefore, we are always confident and know that as long as we are at home in the body, we are away from the Lord. We live by faith, not by sight. We are confident, I say, and would prefer to be away from the body and at home with the Lord. So we make it our goal to please him, whether we are at home in the body or away from it. For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that each one may receive what is due him for the things done while in the body, whether good or bad. If there's one thing that should be clear to each one of us. It is that since our future is here, believe it or not, our ultimate future is here, living here in God's creation. You know, it's in the renewed creation particularly, without suffering, without the troubles, without all the other things associated with it, that this life is not a throwaway. If that is true, then this life of ours right now is not a throwaway. Or as I was taught, believe it or not, as a young Christian back in the 80s, long time ago, as I was taught as a young Christian back in the 80s, it's all going to burn. It's all going to burn. So what? So who cares? So what difference does it make in terms of what we do? You see? Oops. Wrong answer there. Wrong attitude there. Not so much. What we do matters. What we do now matters. How we live out our lives matter. I don't have a lot of time to read that, but 1 Corinthians 3, if you want to look it up, verses 10 through 15. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 10 through 15. That's what Paul's talking about. The things we do now matter. Those things that we do now that are part of God's design, that are part of what God is doing, that are part of his future, we take in with us. We bring forward. That's why Paul, though he was talking about heaven as a new reality at the resurrection of all things, says in 2 Corinthians 5:9, he says this, so we make it our goal, so therefore what we do now is we make it our goal to please him, whether we are at home in the body or away from it. That is such an awesome verse. We make it our goal to please the Lord. Not because we need to somehow work for his affection. It's because of, as we said earlier, because of this intimate relationship with him and wanting to be with him wanting to be with us. You know, the Message version, again, has a wonderful way of saying it. It says this, it says, he goes, but neither exile nor homecoming is the main thing. Cheerfully pleasing God is the main thing. And that's what we aim to do, regardless of our conditions. No matter our condition, no matter what is going on, no matter what we may see around us, no matter our condition, it doesn't matter. Regardless of those things, we make it our aim to please him, Paul says. That speaks of everything. That speaks it all. Our walking out by faith, not simply by what we see around us, is a walk in a love relationship with Jesus, who is God incarnate, God in the flesh, if you will. Just as basically a married couple, should desire to please one another no matter what. Not conditioning their affection and their care for what goes on around them, but only because of a true deep love that goes beyond feelings, and goes beyond the fact that just simply their needs are being met, but to a connection beyond description, a soul connection, you see, a connection that goes beyond the flesh or the body. It's a soul connection, a deep connection. Something we are rather than something we should be. It's something we are. It's who we are as people of faith. Not something we're trying to attain to or should be. I should be this, I should be that, I should do that, I shouldn't do this. No. That's not what he's referring to. From that perspective, then, what we do now matters. because God cares for what he's made. And whether it was us, you, or the rest of his creation, he cares for it and us. And that's why he sends Jesus to die and then to be risen, because he cares. Oftentimes when I'm talking to people, they ask in terms of what was God like, and I say, well, and the question is, okay, if you just simply believe in God, that's great, that God created stuff, great, but does that God care? The cross says God cares. He cares this much. You see. That's why he sends Jesus. And then he rises to show us new life. So therefore, we're to care. If God cares so very much, to that extent, so we are to care as well. It is who we are now as God's people, people of faith, and ones who walk by faith. No matter what others throw at us, no matter what the world throws at us, no matter what we see, what we do now matters. And our response is in how we walk and how we put that faith into action. That's why Paul says in 2 Corinthians 5:10, he says this. He goes, sooner or later, we'll all have to face God. This is the Message version. I love how he says this. Sooner or later, he says, we're all going to have to face God, every one of us. Regardless of our conditions, no matter what's gone through in our lives, we're all going to have to face God. We will appear, he says, before Christ and take what's coming to us and have to take what's coming to us as a result of our actions, either good or bad. For those of us who have put their faith in Jesus and in his death and his promise and resurrection, we do not stand before God as strangers. When we go to stand before God, those of us who put our faith in, we do not stand before God as strangers, but as sons and as daughters who trust not in their own goodness, but on God's mercy, upon his mercy and upon his grace. For those outside a relationship with Jesus, they must pridefully trust in their own rightness simply by the law, if you will, as what Paul puts it. Simply by the law, were they able just to do the do's and don'ts right down to every measure, rather than in grace, in the grace of God. Matter of fact, in another book in the Bible, my last verse here this morning, Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8. And this is what Paul says. He says this. He says, for it is by grace you have been saved through faith. It is by grace you have been saved through faith. And this not from yourself. It's not from you. It is the gift of God. Is that what you trust in? The moms, basically, whether they were, Rosemary, or whether they were Dawn, and their children now talking about them. They are ones, basically, who recognize that what they do now matters. And because they recognize what they do now matters, you see. They recognize what they do is being lived out in front of others, particularly their children. But it's not just something they should do because of those reasons. It's because they put their faith in Jesus, and it is now who they are. It's what they believe deeply. So their actions basically just kind of come along with their faith. Okay, well, that's all I have for you guys here this morning on this Mother's Day. And I hope you're having a good day. As I said, it does seem like there's many people having a good day today someplace else. And I really do appreciate the fact that those of you who could join us this morning. I really could appreciate it so very much. Had a wonderful time in worshiping, wonderful time in being together here this morning. And what we're going to do now is simply this. I recognize that for some, may be looking for prayer in some way. Maybe you have something going on in your life that you just think to yourself, I wish I could get some prayer this morning. Oftentimes when it's Mother's Day or Father's Day or whatever it is, it often dials up for some people some negative things, unfortunately. Maybe you had such a rough childhood, you had some rough things going on in your life, you know what I mean, that it's hard for you. Sometimes you find yourself still struggling with it. Well, in just a little bit, we're going to be going in the back. We'll be going back to my office. We'll start up a Zoom meeting, basically. That's kind of like an altar call. If you just go to the website, and on the front page of the website, vineyardfishkill.org. If you just go to vineyardfishkill.org and you go on there, what you'll see is on the right-hand side of that front page, you're going to see post-ministry prayer or something like that. I think it's post-ministry service or post-service ministry or something like this. One of those three words in combination. And what you can do is just click that, and it will take you right to the meeting, okay? And so, but you need prayer for something. Maybe you're somebody who's never really put your faith in Jesus. This is your day. There's no reason to wait. It is a faith move. It is a choosing choice. I can guarantee you, if you're watching this morning, you're somebody outside of faith in Jesus, it's just a matter of now God is calling out to you. And now it's you just answering the call back. Picking up the line, if you will. Answering the call. No ghosting God here. You see. And so, when you do that, with your heart, say, okay, God. You see, He promises that when you do that, He sends His Spirit, Him Himself, to come to walk with you and to walk us through the very things that we go on through life. But not just to get through things, with a hope, with the future bright for us, a future reality that we can live out now in all hope that we have. You see? That is your destination. That is your destiny. And then it becomes our purpose as people of faith, ourselves, as people of action. And so